In the nation of magic, Yuscha, nobility is everything. The higher-ups use their power to protect the citizens from invaders and monsters, enjoying high status in return. Inside the famed house of Marquis Frenbriad, a new heir is born. Everyone expects the boy, Hermes, to be a total prodigy. The Frenbriad family used to be dukes, but they lost their rank because none of their recent heirs were any good at magic. The Marquis sees Hermes as his ticket back to the top and orders the staff to treat him like royalty. 4 years later, the kid is thriving. His tutors are already calling him a genius with limitless potential. His father couldn't be happier, seeing his grand ambitions finally coming to life. The Marquis is convinced Hermes will be as great as the legendary kings of old. He puts a massive amount of pressure on the young boy to live up to the family name. Meanwhile, Hermes' older brother, Chris, gets treated like a disappointment. While Chris struggles, Hermes dives deep into his magic books, learning about the powers passed down through bloodlines. Hermes shows off what he's learned to his childhood friend, Caddy. She's impressed, but Hermes is just happy to be studying the special magic that only nobles can use. He dreams of becoming a legendary hero who beats up the bad guys. Time flies, and before he knows it, he's turning 7 years old. The big day finally arrives for his official magic appraisal, but the kingdom's appraiser has some shocking news. He doesn't sense any lineage magic in Hermes at all. Zero aptitude. The Marquis world comes crashing down as the appraiser says Hermes isn't favored by God. Fate is a cruel thing. The Marquis snaps. All his plans to regain his rank are gone, and he takes his rage out on Hermes, punching the kid to the ground. He drags the boy to a dungeon and locks him behind bars. He calls Hermes a worthless disappointment and says just breathing the same air makes him want to vomit. Hermes begs for a chance to work harder, but his father has already written him off. He claims the star god has abandoned the boy and leaves him to rot in the dark. Days pass in that cold cell. Suddenly, Chris shows up, looking down at his little brother from outside the bars. Hermes hopes for some help, but he's in for a rude awakening. Chris isn't there to rescue him. He wants to gloat about being the one who's actually chosen by God and starts charging up his own magic. He blasts Hermes with a magical attack, laughing as the kid is sent flying against the wall. He calls it a taste of his real power. Chris claims this is punishment for Hermes being so full of himself back then. He's been holding a grudge this entire time because their father ignored him. He tells Hermes to watch from the shadows as he becomes the next family head. With a mocking laugh, he walks away, leaving Hermes alone again. Hermes is broken, huddled in the corner of his cell, but then a familiar voice calls out to him from the small window above. It's Caddy. She sees his injuries and starts to cry, frustrated that she doesn't have the magic to heal him. Hermes has already given up, calling himself defective. Caddy won't hear any of it. She grabs his face and tells him she believes in him more than anyone. She's certain he'll become a great mage one day. She makes an absolute promise to get him out of there. Her support is the only thing keeping Hermes' spirit from completely shattering. For 3 years, Caddy brings him food and cheers him on. Hermes spends every waking moment in that cell trying to find even a spark of magic within himself. But nothing changes. Then one day, Caddy comes with bad news. She's being married off to Prince Aster, the strongest mage in the country. She won't be coming back. As the heiress of a dukedom, she can't say no to the future king. It's an honor she has to accept, even if it means leaving Hermes behind. Suddenly, Chris shows up with a squad of soldiers. He's the prince's right-hand man now, and he's here on official orders. Caddy tries to argue, but Chris doesn't care. He says the prince has no use for people without magic and ordered him to get rid of Hermes. Caddy is dragged away, screaming for them to stop. Hermes is taken to the outskirts of a ruined city and abandoned like trash. He's lost everything. He wanders through the decaying streets, feeling completely unloved. He just wanted to earn his father's affection, but he ended up with nothing. He realizes he's being watched from the shadows. The atmosphere is heavy, and he's scared out of his mind in this strange place. A gang of thugs surrounds him. They realize he's a noble kid who wandered off alone, a perfect target. Hermes tries to run, but he doesn't stand a chance. They grab him, calling him a sitting duck. Hermes struggles, but they're much stronger. They have no intention of letting him go. The leader realizes Hermes is defective and won't sell for a ransom. He decides it's better to just kill him, and the gang starts beating the boy mercilessly. Hermes wonders if this is all his life was meant to be, working hard for absolutely no reason. A thug pulls a knife, ready to end it. Suddenly, a massive burst of energy clears the area, sending the thugs flying. A woman's voice tells them to knock it off. She's standing there, glowing with power. She's dressed in a stunning gown and looks completely unimpressed. She's disgusted that a bunch of adults are ganging up on a child and says they've ruined her day. The thugs are confused, but Hermes looks up with a glimmer of hope. The woman stands her ground, casting a long shadow over the scene. She smiles and says she's going to enjoy beating them up. The thugs realize they've messed with the wrong person and try to fight back, but it's too late. She absolutely wrecks them. Magic circles appear everywhere as she launches multiple attacks at once, leaving the gang in pieces. Hermes can't believe it. She's using fireball, ice, and wind blades simultaneously. Most people can only use one form of magic, but she's doing everything. The thugs finally recognize her. She's the Sky Witch Rose. She's known as a walking catastrophe and is way more powerful than any noble they've ever seen. Rose looks down at Hermes with a smirk. This is the moment everything changes for the boy who is supposed to have no future. Rose looks at the remaining thugs with a playful smirk. She tells them they took way too long to figure out who she was and that their general magic was just an insult to her presence. She starts chanting a high-level spell, her energy radiating outward. She wants to show them what real magic looks like, and the air around her begins to crackle with intensity. She unleashes her bloodline magic, H-Lidskjalf. A massive pillar of light erupts, engulfing the remaining gang members in an instant. They don't even have time to scream before they're blown away. The battlefield is left in ruins, but Rose has made sure not to kill anyone. She just didn't want to soil her hands with their filth. She walks over to Hermes and tells him he's safe now. Suddenly, Hermes shouts a warning. He sensed a sniper's magic from far away. Rose is surprised but reacts instantly, blocking a lethal shot that was aimed right at her back. Rose is genuinely impressed. She hadn't even noticed the sniper, yet this kid sensed the magic from a massive distance. She tells him he's caught her interest and introduces herself. The meeting marks a major turning point for Hermes. Rose looks at him with a warm smile, knowing that this encounter will be the key to his revival as a mage. She checks on him, asking if he's hurt anywhere else. Hermes is still in shock and can only manage a quiet thank you. Rose brushes it off, saying those guys just annoyed her. Hermes begins to break down. He tells her he wanted to be a powerful mage just like her, but he's been told his whole life that he has zero potential. He's been living in a nightmare of failure. Rose listens as he pours his heart out, explaining how his family abandoned him and his only friend had to leave. She sees the deep scars the Marquis left on the poor boy's soul. She pulls him into a hug, telling him not to believe a single word those idiots said. She senses something in him that no one else did, a raw, untapped talent that's buried deep under his fear. Rose is shocked when he confirms he was told he had no bloodline magic. To her, his ability to sense that sniper's magic was first class. She tells him he's a perfect diamond in the rough. She gets way too excited and starts squeezing him, calling him adorable. Hermes is completely caught off guard by her sudden change in energy, but he can feel her genuine kindness. Rose composes herself and asks him a serious question. Does he really love magic? Hermes blushes and admits that he does, despite everything that's happened to him. She tells him that they need to correct his misunderstanding of what magic really is. While bloodline magic is powerful, it's not the end-all be-all that the nobility claims it to be. Rose takes him on a flight over the city, showing him a new perspective. She explains that magic wasn't given by God, but created by the logic and reasoning of humans who worked hard for it. She tells him that being born with only one type of magic is actually more like a curse. It limits what a person can do, while someone like him has the potential for so much more. Hermes listens in awe as his world is turned upside down. Rose's words are the first time anyone has ever told him that his lack of bloodline magic isn't a failure, but an opportunity. Rose explains that he's a mage with the most freedom in the world. Since he's not cursed by a single lineage, he has the potential to create magic that's more beautiful and powerful than anything she can do. She admits she's been searching for a kid like him for a long time. She sees his potential as the key to something much greater and wants to help him realize it. Standing under the full moon, Rose makes him a life-changing offer. Will he become her disciple? It's the chance he's been dreaming of since he was 4 years old. Hermes thinks it over rationally. It's a suspicious offer from a woman he just met, but the way she talks about magic makes him believe that she loves it just as much as he does. He accepts the offer, looking forward to working with her. For the first time in years, he has a reason to keep going and a path to follow. 5 years pass in the blink of an eye. Hermes has been training diligently, and he's grown into a capable young man, though he still has a long way to go. Caddy is shown running through the city streets, out of breath and looking desperate. She's been working tirelessly to fulfill her duties, but something is clearly wrong. She's been trying to avoid the guilt in her chest ever since Hermes was taken away. She's been studying every day, hopping to find a way to fix things, but she feels like she's running out of time. Prince Aster is shown sitting on his throne, looking bored and arrogant. He claims that everything in the nation is decided by bloodline magic, and as the strongest, he is the law. Chris arrives and finds Caddy, telling her to stop resisting. He's here to take her away on the prince's orders, and he's brought a squad of soldiers to make sure she complies. Caddy is accused of plotting against the state, a charge she denies. She tells Chris he has no evidence and is overstepping his authority by arresting the daughter of a duke's family. Chris just laughs, saying any command from Prince Aster is just. He's confident that the prince will determine her guilt regardless of the lack of evidence. Caddy knows he's bluffing, but she's still in trouble. Caddy realizes that being arrested would be the same as admitting guilt in the eyes of the public. She's learned over the last 5 years that rumors are everything in the world of nobility. Chris threatens to call his father and have the Ministry of Justice handle her. Caddy knows she can't yield to him, but she's being cornered by both the soldiers and his political power. She decides to fight back, unleashing her own bloodline magic, Soteria Trivia. She's determined to protect herself and the memory of the friends she lost. Chris is unimpressed, easily blocking her attack. He's been training under the prince, and his power is far beyond what Caddy can handle on her own. He counterattacks with his magic, Misteltana. A barrage of light arrows slams into the ground, creating a massive explosion that sends Caddy flying. Caddy is left coughing on the ground, realize the gap in their abilities is even larger than she thought. She hasn't perfected her magic yet, and it's costing her dearly in this fight. Chris prepares to end it, telling her to go to sleep. He's mocking her, saying the king has allowed him to cause some damage to make sure she's properly subdued. Caddy remembers Hermes and how he was the only one who ever praised her magic. His words saved her so many times, but now she's the one who needs saving. She feels like a fool for getting torn up after all these years. No matter how much she regrets that day, she knows that nothing she does will change the past. Suddenly, a massive shield of light blocks Chris's final attack. Someone has intervened at the last second, and the power of the shield is unlike anything Caddy has ever seen. A familiar voice calls out to her. Caddy looks up in shock to see a young man standing between her and Chris. He's calm and composed despite the chaotic situation. Caddy's eyes widen as she realizes who it is. After 5 years, Hermes has returned, and he's clearly not the same defective boy she once knew. After 5 long years, Hermes stands before Caddy, his appearance and aura completely transformed. He smiles gently, telling her that he has fulfilled his promise to become an amazing mage and has finally returned to her. Chris and the other nobles look on in disbelief as the boy they exiled returns as a man of obvious power. As the reunion unfolds, Hermes' mind drifts back to the day his journey began and the master who changed his fate. The flashback begins with young Hermes waking up with a start in a room he doesn't recognize. He is shocked to find Rose, the legendary Sky Witch, lying right next to him with a playful good morning. Hermes is flustered to be in the same bed, but Rose simply tells him he fell asleep while she was carrying him home. She pulls him into a tight embrace, admitting that she often feels lonely living by herself and enjoys his warmth. Trying to lighten the mood, she offers to give him a tour of the house before they have breakfast together. Walking through the cozy home, Hermes feels like he's in a wonderful dream, a world away from his cold life at the mansion. Rose proudly tells him that he will be living here from now on and offers to give him his very own room. She opens a door to reveal a dusty, cluttered storage room, much to her own embarrassment and Hermes' confusion. Breakfast turns out to be a disaster as Rose serves a plate of burnt, unidentifiable black sludge. Despite the bad food, Hermes looks at Rose with determination and asks if she will finally begin teaching him magic. Rose takes him to her personal library, and Hermes is awestruck by the sheer volume of ancient magic books. Rose apologizes for her lack of domestic skills, but tells Hermes that finding him was like a miracle for her. She looks him in the eye and solemnly promises that she will never betray or abandon him as long as he loves magic. Hermes is moved to tears, apologizing for his initial wariness and feeling hope for the first time in his life. With a beaming smile, he officially accepts her as his master, and Rose reacts with overwhelming, adorable excitement. Training begins in earnest, with Rose explaining that their ultimate goal is to master her most powerful, unique magic. The seasons pass in a blur of intense study and practice, with Hermes proving to be an exceptionally gifted student. 5 years later, a grown Hermes prepares to leave his master's side to return to the capital and face his past. He tells Rose that he needs to return to the heart of the kingdom to truly find his own unique path in magic. Rose wails dramatically, begging him to reconsider because she has become completely dependent on his cooking and cleaning. Hermes tries to push her off, embarrassed by her clinginess now that he's 15 years old. Rose warns him that the capital is a stagnant place where lineage magic is the only thing that matters to the corrupt nobility. Hermes remains undeterred, knowing he must face those who once threw him away as defective. Finally accepting his departure, Rose tells him to go to the capital and go on a rampage to show off his true strength. Hermes sets off with a confident stride, carrying the knowledge and power his master bestowed upon him. Rose waves goodbye from the hillside, shouting her love for her disciple as he disappears into the distance. Back in the present, Hermes stands tall in the center of the capital, finally face to face with Caddy once again. He vows to save her from her pursuers, declaring that he will use his own developed magic to protect her. The soldiers and Chris are paralyzed by the sudden appearance of this powerful young man who bears a striking resemblance to the boy they exiled. Chris sneers, refusing to believe this good-for-nothing could still be alive, let alone have any magical power. He arrogantly orders Hermes to step aside and hand over Caddy, calling her a criminal of the state. Hermes ignores the insults, remembering how Caddy's kindness was the only thing that kept his spirit from breaking in the dungeon. He looks at Chris with cold eyes, telling him that there are many things he can do now, like getting rid of an annoying noble. Infuriated, Chris begins to cast a high-level lineage spell, unaware that Hermes has seen far greater power than his. As Chris chants the incantation for Hlitskjelf, Hermes remains perfectly calm, already analyzing the flow of magic. Hermes begins his own chant, explaining that his magic is neither a lineage curse nor a gift from some distant god. With a thrust of his hand, Hermes unleashes Creation Magic Steel of the Origin, a spell that defies traditional logic. Chris is shocked and humiliated to see his superior magic being countered by someone he once considered a failure. Hermes stands amidst the chaotic display of magic, his calm demeanor a sharp contrast to the panic around him. He knows that in this nation, no one would spare a thought for a commoner caught in such a mess, but he is no longer that helpless boy. He recalls the fundamental teachings of his master, that all magic follows a logical foundation. For someone like him, who isn't bound by the curse of lineage magic, the potential to analyze and recreate any spell is limitless. With a focused gaze, Hermes begins the process of formula recreation. He meticulously deconstructs the complex lineage magic before him, identifying each component from the magic bullet to the final divine bow. Hlitskjelf, Hermes shouts, successfully manifesting the exact same high-level spell Chris had used. The sheer impossibility of a defective commoner performing lineage magic leaves Chris and Caddy completely speechless. The resulting explosion of power is immense, effectively neutralizing Chris's attack and leaving the arrogant noble trembling in the dust. Chris can only stare in disbelief at the brother he once despised. Hermes exhales slowly, realizing that his years of being subjected to Chris's magic as a child actually helped him understand its structure. His Steel of the Origin has proven its terrifying potential in a real battle. Chris erupts in a fit of pure, unadulterated rage, refusing to accept that he, the chosen one, could be surpassed by someone he considers a defect. He screams that Hermes should have just died in obscurity. Despite his bluster, Chris is clearly defeated and humiliated. His guards rush to his side as he collapses, his pride shattered by the very magic he thought made him superior. With the immediate threat neutralized, Hermes turns his attention to Caddy. He checks to see if she's all right, his voice regaining the gentle tone she remembered from 5 years ago. Caddy can't help but stare at him, overwhelmed by how much he's grown and how beautiful he has become. She's both relieved and frustrated, finally letting out a loud dummy at the boy who had been missing for so long. Caddy's eyes fill with tears as she scolds him for not relying on her family, the Trachea dukedom. She admits how much she regretted not being able to help him when he was exiled. Hermes pulls her into a comforting embrace, apologizing for the worry he caused. He's moved by her unwavering care, realizing that his survival was a gift she truly cherishes. As they walk through the streets, Caddy bombards him with questions about where he's been and what he's been doing for work. Hermes stays vague, not yet ready to reveal the full extent of his journey. Caddy's face lights up with a brilliant idea, impulsively offering to hire Hermes and take him back to her family home. The suddenness of the proposal catches Hermes completely off guard. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, a frustrated prince listens to a report about the failure to capture Caddy. He's furious that an unknown magician managed to thwart his plans and protect the girl he considers an obstacle. The noble in the report is too ashamed to admit he lost to an exile, choosing to lie about the magician's identity. The prince remains determined to suppress anyone who steps out of line, just like his predecessors. Reflecting on his return to the capital, Hermes knows his life is about to change once again. He saved his childhood friend with a forbidden magic, and he knows the path ahead won't be easy. Despite the uncertainty, Hermes decides to follow Caddy to her family's estate. The sheer scale of the Trachea residence is breathtaking, a symbol of the status he once lost. As they arrive, a young maid named Layla rushes out to greet them, her face full of concern. She is shocked to see Hermes, recognizing him as the boy Caddy used to play with years ago. Layla is overjoyed to see that Hermes is safe, having heard the rumors of his zero aptitude and subsequent exile. Her warm welcome makes Hermes feel a sense of belonging he hasn't felt in a long time. Caddy leads Hermes into the grand foyer, assuring him that her family and staff are nothing like the cruel people from his past. As the sun sets, she officially introduces him to Lord Jurgen, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Hermes' life. Vate meets with the Duke, the head of the Trachea house. The old man is impressed by how much he's grown since they last met. Vate shows off his unique magic, the Steel of the Origin, which manifests as a glowing, floating geometric cube. The Duke is intrigued by the display, asking where he could have learned such a rare type of magic. Vate explains that it isn't just for show, it actually allows him to perfectly recreate any spell he's seen before. He clarifies that the process isn't instant, it takes a significant amount of time and research to reconstruct a powerful spell. Suspicious of his sudden return to the royal capital, the Duke asks what his true objective really is. Vate stares at his magic, stating clearly that he wants to eventually find a magic that is entirely his own. He recalls a promise to his master, who wanted him to create something beautiful to prove his own existence. Vate admits he helped Arya because she's still the same kind girl she was when they were children. The Duke is happy to see that level of trust, while Arya just stands there turning bright red. Arya gets even more flustered when her father suggests Vate should stay by her side as a guard from now on. That night, Vate relaxes in his new room. He's secured a job, but he knows the political situation is already getting messy. He finds Arya alone on a balcony. She's surprised he was able to track her down so easily. Vate doesn't beat around the bush, telling her how beautiful she's become. It catches her completely off guard. Arya tells him to drop the formal act. Since it's just the two of them, they can talk like they used to. He talks about his master, calling her the best mage in the world, even if she's a bit of a disaster in daily life. The mood shifts when Vate realizes that her engagement to the prince was broken off just last month. Arya admits she's basically a castaway noble now, standing alone against the dark night sky. The next morning, a maid helps Vate get into his new guard uniform, admiring how good it looks on him. She tells him that Arya is lonely and carries a lot of pressure, asking him to really stay by her side. Vate clenches his fist, realizing there's a lot he missed during the 5 years he was away. When they meet up for his first day, Arya gets shy again and tells him to keep his distance for a while. He takes her hand and formally accepts his new role as both her childhood friend and personal guard. Arya suddenly remembers her past, a time when she was just a small child crying for her mother. Her mother had always taught her that a noble's magic is meant for protecting those who can't fight for themselves. The memory ends with a young Arya reaching out toward a village being destroyed by monsters. She wakes up from the dream with a heavy heart, staring up at the ceiling in the dark. She joins her father and a knight in the study. A monster lair has been found, and Arya insists on going herself. Despite her father's protests, she says it's her duty to save the people from the growing danger. The Duke finally gives in, asking Vate to protect her. She's turned out to be just like her mother. The group sets out toward the dungeon, accompanied by a few armored soldiers. They arrive at a massive entrance overgrown with thick roots, the perfect place for a monster horde to hide. One of the knights is still skeptical, annoyed that they only hired a kid like Vate for such a dangerous job. Their path is blocked by Count Eldridge, a neighboring noble who claims he has jurisdiction over the mountain. Eldridge is incredibly arrogant, ignoring old agreements and declaring he'll conquer the dungeon himself. He goes as far as mocking Arya, calling her a defective lady who can't even use magic properly. A monster wolf suddenly lunges out from the trees, but Vate takes it down before anyone can even blink. Vate mocks the Count right back, asking for an expert opinion on the attack the man didn't even notice. He keeps the roasting going, suggesting the Count should be crying with gratitude for being saved. The Count storms off in a huff, and the knight who doubted Vate finally admits he was wrong about him. Inside the dungeon, Vate continues to wipe out monsters effortlessly, leaving everyone else in the dust. He plays it off as simple, basic magic, but Arya knows he's hiding some seriously impressive power. Deep inside the dungeon, they finally come face to face with the boss, a massive creature covered in bone-like armor. The sheer scale of the magic reaction is unlike anything they've felt before, confirming that this is the master of the lair. Vate identifies the monster as a tortoise dragon, a full-fledged member of the dragon species despite its shell. Suddenly, the beast lets out a deafening roar that shakes the very foundations of the dungeon. The shockwave is so intense that the stone path begins to crumble and collapse into the abyss below. With their retreat cut off, the group is forced into a corner as the dust begins to settle. The tortoise dragon looms over them, its eyes glowing with a predatory light as it prepares to strike. The soldiers draw their weapons, but they know they're completely outmatched by the ancient creature before them. The dragon lunges forward with surprising speed, its massive claws tearing through the air. Vate stays calm, tracking its movements, while the other guards struggle just to stay on their feet. One of the knights barely blocks a heavy blow, realizing that the beast's speed is its most dangerous weapon. Vate steps forward, raising his hand to manifest a powerful magic circle that crackles with energy. He notes that the dragon's defenses are too thick for standard attacks, calling for Arya to use her lineage magic. Arya begins her chant, praying for peace as she focuses every bit of her mana into a single point. She unleashes Blood Chain, a specialized magic meant to bind and suppress powerful monsters. The chains wrap around the dragon, holding it in place for just a moment while the ground trembles. However, the beast is stronger than expected, manifesting its own barrier to block the binding spell. Vate realizes the situation is identical to a battle he fought a year ago against a similar high-ranking dragon. He tells himself that conventional magic won't work, remembering the struggle he and his master went through. The guards panic, shouting for Arya to escape while they stay behind to buy her some time. Arya refuses to leave her people behind, her resolve firm even as the dragon prepares its next attack. Vate calls out to her, explaining that there's only one attack capable of piercing through that barrier. He tells her he needs exactly 5 seconds and asks her to keep the beast distracted for that long. Vate begins his charge, moving with a level of agility that shocks the professional knights. He dodges a massive tail swipe, his body reinforced by magic as he continues his frantic dash. The dragon roars in frustration, unable to land a hit on the small, fast target darting around its feet. Arya pushes her magic to the limit, successfully forcing the massive beast down onto its knees. She manages to suppress it momentarily, though she knows her mana is almost completely drained. Vate thanks her, having finally completed his complex chant, as the steel of the origin glows intensely. He initiates Formula Recreation, tapping into the power of a dragon he once witnessed in another dungeon. He unleashes Alternate Dragon Breath, a localized explosion of pure heat and destructive force. The dragon screams as the recreated attack tears right through its scales and inner armor. A massive pillar of fire erupts, lighting up the entire cavern as the boss is consumed by the flames. As the smoke clears, the soldiers cheer in disbelief, realizing the ancient monster is actually dead. Vate explains how he used the steel to recreate the magic, though the theory behind it still sounds impossible. Arya looks down at her hands, feeling frustrated that she was unable to do more in the comparison. She confesses that she feels like a defect, a noble lady who can't even use her own magic effectively. Vate quickly shuts that down, telling her he's not disappointed and that she did exactly what was needed. He asks for her permission to study her magic, suspecting that something external is interfering with its true power. He explains that many mages use their spells by instinct alone, never truly understanding the underlying structure. Vate vows to ascertain the reason for the malfunction, hoping to help her reach her full potential. Their moment is interrupted as Count Eldridge appears again, looking to take credit for the boss's defeat. Count Eldridge spots a magnificent artifact inside the treasure chest, a winged staff that glows with ancient power. He immediately starts dreaming of the rewards and prestige he'll gain by presenting this rare find to the royal family. Arya demands that he stop, reminding him that her people were the ones who truly conquered the dungeon and defeated the boss. Ignoring her, Eldridge begins to chant, preparing to use his lineage magic Aelos to claim the treasure by force. He insults Arya, calling her a defective noble and mocking her lineage magic as pathetic and weak. Vate steps forward, calmly offering Arya some advice on how to truly tap into the power of her magic. He explains that magic is heavily influenced by the caster's emotions and that she needs to find the genuineness in what she's feeling. Arya takes his words to heart, reflecting on why she's using her magic in the first place and what her true intentions are. She realizes that up until now, she's been trying to be the perfect noble instead of being honest with herself. Anger flares within her as she thinks about how Eldridge has mocked Vate and the others who fought so hard. With a newfound resolve, she begins her own chant, her magic aura flaring with a dark, intense energy. She unleashes Soteria Trivia, summoning a wave of spectral skeletons that swarm toward the terrified Count. Vate points out that if the Count were to accidentally fall here, his reputation would be ruined forever. He gestures toward the abyss, suggesting that without any witnesses, the Count's disappearance would be quite the mystery. Even Eldridge's own knights start to turn on him, frustrated by how he's treated them throughout this mission. Terrified and outnumbered, the Count finally yields, leaving the artifact and fleeing the dungeon in a panic. Once they're safe, Vate praises Arya, telling her that her last spell was the most beautiful execution he's seen from her. Arya blushes at the compliment, feeling a surge of confidence in her magic for the first time. Vate promises that he'll help her bring out even more of that power, driven by his own personal curiosity. A few days later, life at the Duke's residence has returned to a quiet, peaceful routine. Vate serves tea to Arya, who is impressed by how effortlessly he's taken to his duties as her attendant. One of the maids teases Arya, suggesting that she clearly has feelings for the handsome new attendant. Arya tries to deny it, but her face turns beet red as she thinks about how mature and reliable Vate has become. She wishes he would show a bit more emotion around her, or at least show some interest beyond his professional duties. The maid suggests the perfect solution. Arya needs to take him out on a date to the royal capital. Arya is shocked by the suggestion, but the more she thinks about it, the more she likes the idea. The maid reminds her that even her father, Lord Jurgen, is worried that she's been pushing herself too hard lately. Determined, Arya decides to ask Vate out, hoping that a day of sightseeing will bring them closer together. The next day, the two of them arrive in the bustling royal capital, the scenery bringing back a flood of nostalgia. Vate thanks her for the invitation, but Arya is still a bit preoccupied with the recent annulment of her engagement. Vate gently reminds her that magic is about the genuineness of her feelings, and that applies to life as well. Suddenly, he takes her hand, explaining that they shouldn't get separated in such a large and crowded city. Arya's heart skips a beat as they walk hand in hand through the marketplace, just like they used to do as children. She remembers how she used to drag him along whenever he spent too much time cooped up studying his magic. A shopkeeper recognizes Arya, thanking her profusely for saving her store from a predatory vendor in the past. She teases Arya about being on a secret date, making the young noblewoman stutter and blush in embarrassment. The shopkeeper invites them inside to look at her selection of jewelry, mentioning that they even sell to other nobles. Arya admits she doesn't know much about fashion, having always focused more on her responsibilities than her appearance. Vate tells her that he finds magic beautiful and that he'd love to see her wearing one of the pieces here. Arya is completely flustered by his directness, wondering how he can say such things so calmly in public. She hides her face behind her pillow later that night, still reeling from the emotions of their day together. Her maid mentions a celebration party is coming up, and Arya decides she wants Vate to help her choose the perfect dress. The moon hangs high over the grand cathedral as the night of the much-anticipated celebration party finally arrives. Vate Hermes finds himself on escort duty, feeling a bit out of his element until Arya Keisha appears, looking breathtaking in her formal gown. Arya Keisha looks up at him with a mix of shyness and hope, softly asking him how she looks in her chosen attire. Struggling to find the words to match her radiance, Vate Hermes simply and sincerely tells her that she looks incredibly beautiful. Inside the venue, the local nobility can't stop whispering about Arya Keisha, balancing their praise for her beauty with gossip about her controversial past. Lord Jurgen pulls Vate Hermes aside to offer his deepest thanks, acknowledging that it was his guidance that helped Arya Keisha unlock her true potential. When Vate Hermes asks why the Duke chose to trust a stranger, Jurgen explains it was because he saw how much Vate genuinely believed in his daughter. Jurgen then drops a bombshell, revealing he has guessed the identity of Vate's master due to his late wife's past connection with the great sage. Leaving Vate Hermes to process this revelation, Jurgen encourages him to return to Arya's Keisha's side as the party continues. A nobleman named Karl von Hartnett approaches Arya Keisha with a bold marriage proposal for his son, eager to ally with her rising star. Arya Keisha attempts to decline gracefully by mentioning her recently broken engagement, but the count remains undeterred by the scandal. The conversation is abruptly cut short by a cold, arrogant voice that demands to know who is speaking so lightly of royal matters. Vate Hermes is struck with shock as he comes face to face with a man who ruined his previous life, Prince Aster. A tense silence falls over the ballroom as the guests realize that the second prince has made an unannounced and unwelcome appearance. Vate Hermes narrows his eyes, immediately suspicious of what the prince hopes to gain by crashing a celebration for the woman he cast aside. Aster wastes no time in being cruel, publicly declaring Arya Keisha to be worthless and threatening anyone who would dare offer her a proposal. He goes as far as to label the count a criminal just for associating with her, causing a ripple of fear to spread through the gathered nobles. Mocking her recent success as a fluke, Aster dismisses Arya's Keisha's achievements as a sham and belittles her for losing her place by his side. When Arya Keisha tries to speak up in her own defense, Aster barks at her to be silent, refusing to hear anything she has to say. He gestures to a girl named Sarah von Hartmann, announcing to the room that she is the one who will take Arya's, Keisha's, place as his fiancée. Aster shamelessly praises Sarah's kindness and magic talent, holding her up as the perfect ideal in contrast to what he calls Arya's, Keisha's, failures. He demands that Arya Keisha accept her supposed inferiority, while the poor girl Sarah looks increasingly uncomfortable with the public spectacle. Raising his voice for all to hear, Aster lies about their school days, claiming that Arya Keisha was a jealous bully who targeted Sarah for her talent. Vate Hermes watches with growing ire as the fickle nobles begin to turn against Arya Keisha, realizing that the prince's words carry a dangerous weight.